Alright, so this is my 2005 LLY Duramax here. What I'm going to be fixing today is the also common engine oil cooler leak. As you can see, this one is dripping from right here. So if you have coolant coming down the bell housing and dripping off from the bottom right here, most likely it's going to be your oil cooler, which is right here where your oil filter screws on. And I'm going to be going over what you need to do to change this. First of all, we've got a kit from Felpro. So this is the Felpro kit. It's supposed to come with all the gaskets for the oil cooler. Part number right there on top. And as you can see, generally where they leak, now I've already pulled the bolts out just to show you how it was leaking. It would only leak when it was cold and it was sitting. As soon as you start up and warmed it up, it would quit. But it was running down exactly right here. And what that is the gasket. See the bottom of that bolt hole? There's a gasket where that goes into the block on that 90 there. And that is exactly the gasket that was leaking. So see where it's running down? It was running down and dripping on the ground in the back of the block. So to remove this oil cooler, you have on this guy, there's two studs with nuts. I pulled the bottom one out and the stud came out with it, so I'll just put it back in that way. That's not a big deal. So you got those two there. You've got three on the bottom. Be careful not to confuse it with all these bolts that hold the two halves of the oil cooler together. You got three down here in the bottom. One there, one and two. See those three there? Those are the three that need to come out. You will need probably a swivel socket for the bottom two if you're a four-wheel drive truck, because front diff is in the way. You've also got one up there and one up there you can see I've taken out, and then you've got that coolant pipe that runs up to the water pump, and if you can see there's two nuts on that. You're probably going to have to take those two off, but I will let you know here in a second. If you can just slide it back, this side's got just an O-ring on it, so you might be able to wiggle it out. But I'm going to pull this off, take all those bolts off, and finagle it out of here and show you what the gaskets look like. Alright, so once you pop those bolts out and pop it loose, be prepared to get a shower of coolant going on everything. Even though I drained the radiator completely, there's still a bunch of coolant in the block, so it just dumped all over the place. Try and catch most of it as much as I can. And now we will pull that off. Alright, so I had to take the two nuts off the studs on the water pump up there. I also had to take these two bolts. All the bolts on this are 12 millimeter, by the way. I had to take the two out of here and take this 90 off. And this 90 is actually where it was leaking, but you can't get the 90 off until you pry this down. So I took the bolts out of the 90. You gotta wiggle it, because there's an O-ring. I don't know if you can see it. There's like a tube that goes into the block with an O-ring on it, and it was stuck. So you have to give gentle pressure, wiggle, and then it's gonna pop down and a whole bunch more oil is gonna pour out. And now we got it here. Basically what I'm gonna try and do is it's loose. It's just hanging here by the tube up to the water pump. So I'm just gonna try and pull it back, separate it from that tube, and then pull it down. And there's where it was leaking. If you see the bottom of that, see how it's got a bunch of sludge and stuff on the bottom. So the gasket had failed on the bottom. And then here's the piece right here. So that is exactly where it failed. You can see it looks okay all the way around, and in the bottom you got that junk built up on it where it was oxidizing because it was leaking to the outside. Alright, so this is why I'm making this video, because I've seen plenty of videos on how to change this oil cooler, but they were all on engines out of the truck. And what I've run into here is a case of I'm going to make the mistakes so you don't have to. And I have tried to snake this oil cooler out of here, and it will not come out with the front diff. I mean, it physically can't get out of here. I've rotated it, I've messed with it for about 15 minutes trying to get it out, and this little piece that comes way down here, it can't clear the diff. You can't rotate it to get it off the tube. It doesn't have enough room to slide back. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rewind. I'd imagine this isn't a problem on a two-wheel drive truck because you have none of this in the way here. But on a four-wheel drive truck, I think what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna take all the bolts out around that hold the two halves of the oil cooler together, pull the outside half off, and then pull the inside half off. Take it out in two pieces, and then when I put it together, the other way around. So let me pull those off and see if I can get this out. Alright, so that's the way to get it out right there. So this is, I took all the bolts out, it basically fell down right here, and then you can just grab it and remove. So that's the first half. Also, all the studs hold the actual cooler on. So if you don't want to take the cooler off, you don't have to take any of the nuts off that are on here, just the bolts. So now I'm going to try and get this piece out. It should come out relatively easy now that all that is out. I do have one bolt in here. Okay, there's that guy. So now, hopefully hopefully I can get this piece out with the tube on it, because I can't get the tube off of it. The problem we're running into here is this piece goes up under the exhaust manifold there, and it doesn't let it come out. So I don't know how I'm going to get that off, but I'll figure it out. Alright, so got it out. As you can see, that's where the oil goes in the block, that's where the coolant goes in the back of the block, and then the tube that goes up front. You kind of just gotta pry it out. It hits right here. You can see where it rubbed the aluminum clean there. You gotta just wiggle it back and forth till it comes out. The kit comes with all the gaskets, so what I'm probably gonna do is, even though just the one leaking, we're gonna change everything, obviously, because all these are completely flattened and smushed. It comes with the gaskets for this, so I am gonna pop this cooler off and just put 2 new gaskets on there. Might as well. You're already in this far. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get this thing out. So I'm just going to go ahead and change everything, clean it all up, and then we will do the reverse process to put everything back in the truck. Alright, so oil cooler's out. Old gaskets here. New gaskets on. Make sure you put them on the correct way. Me personally, I like to put a super thin film of gasket maker on them. Yes, I know they're crushed gaskets and they're supposed to seal, but it makes me sleep better at night. Knowing that they're definitely sealed and a little bit of RTV is not going to hurt anything. And I'm talking like a thin film, don't glob it on there, just a little film around the edge. Alright, went ahead and cleaned up all of the gasket surfaces where everything's going to seal, so it's ready to go back on. 2 things to note: the Felpro kit does not come with this gasket that goes to the back of the water pump. It also does not come with the O-ring that goes on the end of this tube to go in there. So take note of that if you're doing this. The O-ring looks fine, and I've already ordered another gasket for here that I already have. So I'm going to reuse this O-ring. It looks okay. We'll clean it up. It's still stretchy, not all dry rotted or squished flat. So we'll put that back in. So I'm going to put this piece back in first. This and the 90 kind of have to go at the same time, because once this is in, you can't get the 90 in. So we'll get these back in, and then I'm not putting this tube in today, but you would want to put this in with this piece if you don't want to take your water pump off. I'm not putting the tube in today because I'm taking the water pump off tomorrow to replace the housing on that, because it's all pitted up and chewed up on the inside. So the lower half is on, bolted up, sealed. Gonna clean those 2 lower holes out, even though they're not bad, where the oil cooler, where the oil O-rings go in, and then we will stick the rest of this on. And then when I do the water pump, I'll stick that black tube in from that side when I put the pump back on. So I'll get this other piece put back on. This piece went pretty straightforward though. I left this bolted on loosely, bolted this up, and then I tightened these 2 so it could slide, right? Because if you tighten these 2, it won't let it slide and go up tight on the engine. So tighten the 2 up here, tighten these 2 on the studs, and then tighten the 2 into this, and it should be good. Alright, so one more thing on this half. This is the half that holds the O-ring, and the O-ring's not like a press fit deal. It just kind of sits there. So the only way to get it to stay, as there's no groove on the bottom half, is to put a little bit of RTV all over it and stick it in the groove, or else it will fall down. So it's stuck up in the groove with RTV, and then we're going to put the bottom half on, and the RTV is just going to squish out a little bit. It shouldn't hurt anything, but that's the only way to do it, unless you put the 2 halves together down on the workbench. But then, like I said, you can't get it in if your truck's 4-wheel drive, because you got a differential in the way. You could drop the diff if you really want to do that, but a little bit of RTV seems a little easier. So I'm gonna try to not make a huge mess with it and put this piece back on. Alright, so that is the oil cooler installed. Gonna go ahead and clean up around this area a little bit more. Start it up, make sure nothing's leaking, but that's that. It is a little bit of a pain on the 4-wheel drives, but it can be done. Expect to spend probably 3 or 4 hours on it, and this is granted the truck's on a lift, so that speeds things up a little bit. I'd also like to thank today's video sponsor, AUXITO. If you are looking for a jump box that you want to keep with you on the road, this is a good little portable jump starter. It also has a built-in air compressor, so it'll inflate tires. I inflate tires up to like 45 psi with this thing. It'll jump start. I did a video on this product and jump started a Tahoe with an LS in it. It jump started over like 20 times in a row before it was dead, so that was pretty crazy. They also sell LED headlights, so if you'd like to check that out, I'll leave a link below where you can check their website out for LED headlights and portable jump starters. This unit's pretty cool because it's an air inflator and a jump starter in one. You leave it in your car. If you get a flat tire, if you get a dead battery, you've got yourself covered. But that is it for this video. If it helped you out, maybe consider going down and hitting that subscribe button, and I will see you next time.